Greetings, friends. I'm ForNoGoodReason, and today we're going to talk about the head of the Federation of the Exalted, BoonSlayer. For the moment, I'm a member of Fox, while preparing for Boon's King of Limbo, which should have been recorded by now. I began watching his Powerpuff Girls review on Rainbow, and I stopped writing his questions for the podcast and started writing up a commentary. This is the first time in my life I've ever done this. I want to be perfectly clear, Boon's a sweetheart. Even if he ends up hating my guts later, he's still a great guy. Do not dox, swat, or downvote him. Or yell at Boon. Do not wag a finger at this man or stick your tongue at him. At the very start of Boon's video, he foreshadows an issue with Rainbow within a 3-second clip. The controversy and the attention put on said clip overshadows most of the video, simply because of the tone of urgency here.
I'm going to address that 3-second clip when we get to it, but I'm not going to say that this entire episode is bad just because of 3 seconds of it.
Now, I'm not suggesting that Boon drops his pants and waves his hands around like a buffoon Doug Walker style, or the fact he could have gone deeper into the core content, much like Digibro.
Glory. Why not have them re-emerge even better than ever before? That's kind of the best way to do this kind of thing. And if you want to see a series that's done that amicably, Lupin the Third, which has been, a legacy series from back in the 70s, came back with these amazing Takeshi Koike designed series, and there was the artful woman called Fujiko Mine, and then this really just excellent series of Lupin episodes that...
What I'm suggesting is this piece is too fundamentally basic. Keep in mind, if I thought Boon wasn't capable of more, I would have just shut up. But for whatever reason, I think Boon is capable of either having more flair or possibly more passion for the content he's talking about, which would lead to a better product.
This episode is actually the first to introduce a new villain that was not in the original series. I am interested in seeing if they do better with a villain of their own creation than something that was already part of the Powerpuff Girls lore.
Now, just as a suggestion, either here or later, I would have talked a little bit more about what you expected based on Powerpuff Girls, the original series. In all likelihood, we've seen the show, but the only thing I hear when you say Powerpuff Girls lore is a rosy feeling for nostalgia. It's hardly balanced, and without an example, I have this vague, innocuous, warm, fuzzy feeling what you're talking about was something fun in a far-off world not found in this video, unfortunately.
The episode opens with Miss Keene trying to get the kids in class into a grammar unit, because grammar is important in junk.
Now, the only one of the girls in this class you may have noticed is Buttercup. I didn't bring this up in, the introduction because... well, let's be honest, even though it could be considered an overall aspect of the episode, the fact that I only can notice it in, the 4th episode kind of indicates how not important it is.
If it wasn't important, why did you bring it up? You seem dubiously cynical of this aspect. And props on visually emoting, but it doesn't lend itself to what your point is, which I'm kind of lost on, whatever that may be.
It does serve as a way to isolate the girls for individual plot threads, though. For example, this one.
Anyway, Buttercup isn't exactly entertained, so she makes fun of Miss Keene. Miss Keene tries to tell Buttercup that there's a time and a place for goofing around,
which is the moral of the story given away right at the beginning. Look, to a certain extent with this moral, you kinda have to give it away at the beginning, but could have done with a little bit more subtlety here than just outright stating it.
Do you have an example of where an otherwise good cartoon flubbed a bit by doing this? How about an example of a cartoon or any other kind of media that didn't show its hand right off the bat, so blatantly that led to an overall better story? Now, keep in mind, class, none of these mistakes or style choices that Boon takes or makes are deal breakers in and of themselves. It's the weight of the entirety. With your pauses, I feel like we're gonna cut away to an example. Such an example would have lended weight to your authority to judge the core content. Well, if you did know, why am I watching you? If your assertion is something obvious, the review, or if you're feeling feisty, the analysis falls into your hands to present the facts in a way that the audience doesn't know. Tell me something about the scene not everyone might not know about that wouldn't be so blatantly obvious. Or at the very least, not remind me that the middleman giving me his thoughts isn't entirely necessary.
when a rainbow appears.
And apparently that rainbow is laced with ecstasy because Miss Keene is now super chill right now.
She lets everyone out of class early.
Buttercup's shift in tone here seems a bit off. Okay, this is probably a bit of a nitpick, but You know, I understand most of it. It's just when she starts asking about the grammar unit again. It makes it seem like she actually does care about the grammar unit and was simply goofing off just because she wanted attention instead of the actual motivation of being bored, which was made clear by literally every...
It could have been explained away that she suddenly wanted to pay attention because she might have been unnerved by the mass hysteria of the classroom. Explaining or adding some thoughts on mass hysteria in classrooms would have been a neat distraction right in the video here. Like, you have a teacher here literally tripping balls on acid, a topic just wide open to discussion, and you could have addressed how you were happy with the censors letting this through, or why this left you less than thrilled. Hell, that's a whole video if you wanted to go in that direction. There's a whole discussion waiting for you. These aren't things that you have to do, but there are things that when I or anyone else clicks on a BoonSlayer video, when the piece ends, can go, oh yeah, I want to see what he has to say next time about this thing. I don't have a vibe for BoonSlayer as a person or as a content creator, but then again, we're only 2 minutes in.
I mean, the only explanation I can come up with is that they needed an extra line or two to frickin' make the scene longer to fit the runtime. And they could have done that elsewhere.
Whatever. School's out early because fuck everything. Blossom's upset because her diorama got an A+, and so did everyone else's. She says that she doesn't matter if her intelligence doesn't matter.
Right, Blossom's the nerd. Got it. To be fair, this isn't exactly out of place for what we've already seen, and it certainly gives a new viewer an idea of who Blossom is. I just think they kind of shoved it down our throats a little bit.
I might argue this is a logical fallacy begging the question, but again, there is no example of how this scene could have been done more smoothly. You could have turned to The Simpsons, TMNT, MLPFIM, or many other animations on the nerd archetype. Instead, you put the responsibility on the audience to either know or do the digging themselves. So I have to ask yet again, why am I or they here?
Buttercup trips a kid to show that she can get away with anything. The kid responds by asking Buttercup to hug him, and Buttercup doesn't like it.
The thing is actually a plot point.
Barry gets all the hugs from the other kids, and Bubbles gets out from under a dog pile to express that this is too much hugging.
If Bubbles is telling you there's too much hugging going on, then the world is about to be destroyed by a nuclear hug bomb. Clearly something else is going on here. Luckily, the professor is, as the girls call him, the most sane person they know, so maybe they can ask him for advice.
I'm kindly confused by your tone shift of seriousness to snarky. For executing the nuclear hug bomb, I would have suggested a visual gag here. God! I can see you're attempting a comedic tone shift, and a little visual media razzle-dazzle, if you will, would have gone a long way. As for what you're talking about, the professor, we're still fairly early in the episode, and you sound super tired of this episode already. Might I suggest finding a hook or something you were hoping to see later in the episode that either did or didn't happen, to keep your audience invested?
He's playing in the sprinkler.
Okay, the professor is more of a professional type, and this is a bit of a nitpick. Although this joke is set up properly internally within the episode, I think in the overall series, it's not set up as well as it could. We barely see the professor before now, so, you know, maybe have another episode that more prominently features the professor before this one. And I don't mean the stayover. That was not prominent.
Was there a preferred episode before this that the professor could have been in with more prominence? You name-dropped an episode, but then you didn't really explain why it didn't count.
Do what they do later in the episode, actually. Have a single, cut-in with the chaos going on and people dancing. I think that would have been just as effective, if not more effective.
Anyway, the girls go into the rainbow. Inside the rainbow is what I can only describe as the intro to the amazing world of Gumball.
We get an immediate indication from the girls of what each of them thinks. Blossom doesn't really care. She's more focused on the mission. Bubbles, she loves it. That's actually going to be an indication of something that happens in a moment. Buttercup, she hates it.
The single cut-in idea, this idea here, this is the best moment in your video. Till now, sadly. Everything after this point does become a bit recap heavy.
He tells them to wait for the bass drop. So after the bass drop, he introduces himself as Allegro. He likes to party. Bubbles decides to turn into a valley girl at a midnight rave and can't even. Blossom and Buttercup are unimpressed.
people think this is bad writing for some reason. In terms of Bubbles getting mind controlled at all, it's pretty clear that Bubbles is more susceptible because of the fact that she likes what she is seeing more than the other girls. The resistance in the first place, though, can be chalked out to because superpowers. And in terms of the Valley Girl speak, people are saying that that's them forcing memes into the show. I'm sorry, but I refuse to accept a Valley Girl speak, even when it's a phrase like, I can't even, as a frickin' meme.
Well, I'm gonna have to agree with this. Do kids like to talk about Valley Girls? Yeah, even back in my day. Just a suggestion, how would this felt intrusive or make sense that you enjoyed this execution?
Big surprise, the only character here with a name is revealed to be the villain.
Buttercup once again expresses that she does not want to be hugged. Allegro keeps seeming to wonder why the girls do not want any of his sweet vibes.
Blossom points out that this is chaos because she's the responsible one. Allegro dispenses party lobsters in time with another bass drop, and they shoot smiley faces at the girls.
We're just gonna go with it.
Buttercup dodges, but Blossom and Bubbles get hit. Turns out it was an ecstasy because now the girls are under Electro's party mind control. So they twerk.
And here comes the controversy. Now look, I understand what people have a problem with here. Twerking is associated with sexuality. There is also an association of twerking with fun and partying. And I think that's what they were going for here. That being said, these are little girls, so I understand people having a problem with it. But let me at least defend this to a certain degree, because I understand why it can work and why they probably thought it wouldn't be as bad as it was. Either that, or they were intending to make controversy anyway, but at least let me explain why it's not as bad. First of all, it's already painted as actions of the villain. The girls are under mind control from the villain, and they are doing this only when being mind controlled by the villain. The second thing about this is that immediately afterwards, the only heroic character that is not being mind controlled called it gross. So this is clearly painted as an action that you are not supposed to applaud. This is not an action you are supposed to support. So I think in that sense, I understand the use of it, but if people are still offended by it, of course, I understand that perfectly.
And the payoff? I understand the need to be moderate and open-minded and balanced, but in the lack of many of the things that you could have done to get this video over, I might suggest that you might have chose to be a bit more unreasonable in one direction or the other. There's a hook here to pull your audience back in for a return performance. If everything else, at least a couple of things in your video, could have been dished out better, you would have had a much better time taking the soft answer here and the safe route. Whereas after you know, it's okay if you like it or not after 8 minutes. To quote Applejack,
I didn't learn anything.
Necessity, and then says the exact thing Miss Keene said earlier, thus learning the moral and depressing herself.
Like I said, forced moral is forced. I think it would have been better if she just beat the villain and then went back and showed that she learned the lesson in class, which she does anyway. So, yeah.
just a thought you had another moment for a big payoff here, but your underwhelming attitude on said payoff kinda cut your knees off from underneath you.
I do like the escalation and deconstruction of Allegro's character as the scene continues.
The fuck? Okay, so you're telling me you saw the deconstruction of the panda character. That's great! Are we gonna talk about it in this video? No? Well, fuck me sideways and call me Sally Sue. Boon, I don't know what to tell you. Yeah. Thanks for trying reviews. Better luck next time?